It began like any other quiet afternoon in Willow Creek, a sleepy town just miles from Arlington National Cemetery, where the sun stretched low and golden across a haze of cut grass and asphalt. But beneath that peaceful summer sky, a story was about to unfold, one that would expose more than just a misunderstanding on the roadside. It would test the limits of judgment, authority, and the unseen weight of service. A beat-up Dodge Ram rolled slowly through the heart of town. Behind the wheel sat a man in his early 30s, calm, composed, and seemingly unremarkable to the eyes of passers-by. He wore a plain black t-shirt and jeans, blending into the scenery like any other blue-collar worker heading home after a long shift. His name was Sergeant Caleb Marshall. No one could have guessed what kind of man he really was. No one could see the silent badge of honor tucked inside his wallet. And no one watching knew that in just 5 minutes, the hum of engines would echo down Main Street, not from law enforcement, but from a military convoy dispatched to defend one of their own. Red and blue police lights cut through the dusty haze as Officer Emily Carter pulled up behind Caleb's vehicle. She was firm, direct, young, with mirrored sunglasses that masked the flicker of presumption behind her eyes. Her partner, Officer Michael Hayes, followed a step behind, casual but watchful. Carter's command was brisk. Step out of the truck now. Phones began to rise across the street near Parker's Grill. Locals leaned on parked cars and diner counters, murmuring with the kind of judgment that flows too easily in a small town. Looks like he pushed his luck, someone whispered. Guy in that old truck doesn't look like much. But what they didn't know was that Caleb Marshall wasn't just any man. He was a tomb guard, one of the few elite soldiers entrusted with guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier, a sacred post that demands absolute discipline, silence, and reverence. It's a role that requires 9 months of training and lifelong humility. It's a post where a single step must be perfect, a single mistake unacceptable. But here he stood, pinned against his truck, treated like a suspect for the crime of looking ordinary. This story isn't about a traffic violation. It's about what happens when we assume too much, ask too little, and fail to see the silent heroes among us. It's about how honor sometimes rides in on rusted wheels, and how the most disciplined warriors don't raise their voices. They just stand their ground. Before we dive deeper into this true test of character and confrontation, tell us, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter, then stay with us. Because in the next few minutes, you'll witness not just a dramatic reversal of power, but a story that might change the way you see the people driving next to you, especially the ones who don't beg for attention, but carry the weight of service with quiet pride. The next chapter of Caleb's journey is about to begin. The moment the police cruiser's lights flared red and blue, the sleepy air of Willow Creek shifted. They didn't wail with urgency, just flickered with that signature authority that made everyone look up. It was 4:45 p.m., and the sun was starting its slow descent behind the rooftops. Heat shimmered above the cracked pavement. Caleb Marshall, calm as ever, brought his weathered Dodge Ram to a gentle stop along the shoulder. His hands remained steady on the wheel, his eyes in the mirror. He didn't flinch. He didn't ask questions. He'd seen far more intimidating sights in silence. This was nothing. Across the street, the smell of burgers wafted from Parker's Grill as curious locals peeked out from booths and windows. Phones lifted almost instinctively. Someone muttered, "Was he speeding?" Another smirked. "That truck's a relic. Maybe they're towing it." The young man in the plain black shirt didn't look dangerous, just forgettable. And that, perhaps, was the mistake. Officer Emily Carter stepped out of the cruiser with authority written in every line of her posture. Her mirrored sunglasses reflected the blaze of the setting sun, and her voice was brisk. "Sir, you were going a bit fast back there. License and registration, please." Her partner, Officer Michael Hayes, followed a beat behind her, more relaxed, hand casually resting on his belt. Caleb didn't argue. "I was doing the speed limit, officer. But here you go," he said, voice even, measured. He reached into his pocket and handed over the documents. Emily squinted at the license. "Caleb Marshall, huh?" She glanced back at the truck. "This thing looks like it's seen better days. You sure it's roadworthy?" A flicker passed through Caleb's eyes, but his expression didn't change. "It's maintained. Passes inspection every year. Emily wasn't satisfied. She flipped through the registration. Uh-huh. Step out of the vehicle, please. We need to take a closer look. Hayes leaned in, his tone gentler. Just routine, man. Won't take long. Caleb unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out. His boots hit the ground with a quiet thud, and he stood tall, shoulders square, hands relaxed. His posture, though casual, spoke of something deeper. Discipline, precision, traits honed in silence and service. Emily circled the truck, scanning it for faults. Her tone turned sharp. What do you do for a living, Mr. Marshall? Driving around in this heap doesn't exactly scream steady income. I serve in the Army, stationed at Fort Myer. Caleb's reply was simple, calm. Army, huh? Emily handed him back the license with a faint smirk. What, like a desk job? You don't look like you're in uniform. I'm off duty, Caleb replied, folding his hands in front of him. Hayes glanced at his partner, noticing the tension. Come on, Em, let's wrap this up. Guy's got his papers in order. But Emily stepped closer. It's tough. You were weaving a bit back there. Been drinking? Or just distracted? I haven't been drinking, officer, Caleb said firmly. I was driving straight. If you've got a citation, write it. Otherwise, I'd like to go home. Emily's voice snapped. Don't get smart with me, sir. Step over here. Hands on the truck. We're doing a quick pat-down. From across the street, more locals had gathered. A group of teens, a young mother with her stroller, an elderly couple with arms crossed. Phones were out now, recording in silence. A few voices murmured. Poor guy, just trying to get home. Looks like trouble, though. That truck's a mess. What's she doing? He's cooperating. Caleb took a breath and complied. His hands touched the warm metal of his truck bed. Emily's hands moved quickly, searching for weapons or hidden motives. Then her fingers brushed something hard in his pocket. She pulled out a small leather wallet and paused. Inside was a silver badge, gleaming faintly in the fading light. A wreath, crossed rifles, the insignia of the tomb guard. What's this? She asked, holding it up. Some kind of souvenir? Caleb's voice dropped, calm but unmistakably firm. It's not a souvenir, it's my badge. Emily gave a dismissive snort, tossing it back to him. Yeah, okay, stay here. We're running your info. She turned and walked back to the cruiser. Michael lingered awkwardly. Sorry about this, man. Just doing our job. You know how it is. I understand duty, officer, Caleb replied quietly, eyes on the horizon. Inside Parker's grill, Linda Parker stood behind the counter. Her silver hair was pulled back, apron still dusted with flour. She'd seen Caleb come in for coffee every week after his shifts. She recognized the way he stood, the unshakable poise, the quiet respect he carried in his bones. And when she saw Emily's posture, the aggression in her stance, something twisted in her gut. That's not right, she whispered. She reached for the phone. Fort Myer, please. I need to speak to someone in charge. One of your tomb guards is being harassed by local police. His name's Caleb Marshall. You need to send someone now. Back outside, Emily returned from the cruiser. Her expression was harder now. All right, Mr. Marshall, your record's clean, but I'm not convinced you're fit to drive. You're coming with us to the station for a sobriety test. Caleb didn't move. On what grounds, officer? I've complied with everything. I haven't broken any laws. Emily's hand moved to her holster. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Get in the cruiser, or we'll use force. Michael stepped forward. Maybe we should. No, Mike, Emily snapped. He's being uncooperative. That's enough. The crowd murmured louder now. A young woman with a phone whispered, This is ridiculous. He didn't do anything. An older man nodded beside her, voice rough with disbelief. Typical cops. Picking on some guy for no reason. Caleb stood his ground. I'm not going anywhere, officer. If you've got a charge, state it. Otherwise, I'm leaving. Emily flushed with frustration. You're under arrest for obstructing an officer. Turn around, hands behind your back. And just as the cuffs were about to snap on, the sound came, low, steady, unmistakable. Engines, big ones. 2 military Humvees turned onto Main Street, kicking up dust as they rolled forward in perfect formation. Their brakes hissed. 8 soldiers stepped out in sequence, uniforms crisp, rifles slung tight, eyes focused. The crowd gasped, phones rising again, not in mockery this time, but in awe. And at the front, stepping forward with sharp purpose, came Captain Laura Bennett. Sergeant Marshall, she called out, snapping a salute that cut the air like a blade. We were informed of a situation. Are you all right? The balance had shifted. In seconds. The next chapter of this confrontation was no longer about assumption, it was about accountability. What happened next would shake the foundation of everyone who stood watching. Because not every hero wears a uniform, but some carry legacies in their silence. The hum of military engines grew louder, like a storm cresting the edge of the town. Dust whipped across Main Street as two armored Humvees rolled into view, their presence undeniable, their movement precise and synchronized. Tires crunched the gravel as they came to a halt behind the police cruiser. The moment they stopped, 8 soldiers stepped out in perfect formation, every boot fall landing in rhythm, every motion deliberate. Heads turned, phones lifted again, this time not for entertainment, but for reverence. Leading them was Captain Laura Bennett. Tall, commanding, with blonde hair tucked neatly beneath her cap, her every step cut through the tension like a razor. She didn't glance at the crowd, didn't acknowledge the murmurs or the officers by the truck. Her focus was singular. She approached Sergeant Caleb Marshall, still standing by his Dodge Ram, his hands lowered now, but his back straight as ever. Bennett halted just 3 feet from him. "Sergeant Marshall," she said sharply, her voice like polished steel, "we were informed of a situation." Without hesitation, she raised her hand and delivered a crisp, regulation salute. Caleb returned it with quiet precision. "I'm fine, Captain," he said. "Just a misunderstanding." The crowd froze. Emily Carter's sunglasses slipped slightly down her nose, her jaw slack. She blinked, visibly rattled, as the weight of what she had stepped into began to dawn on her. Michael Hayes instinctively took a step back, eyes darting between Caleb and the commanding officer. Captain Bennett turned her head slowly toward Emily. Her eyes locked in, ice meeting uncertainty. "Who's in charge here?" she asked, her tone even but heavy with consequence. "I am," Emily stammered, trying to reassert herself. "Officer Emily Carter, Willow Creek PD. We stopped this man for a routine check. He was uncooperative." Bennett's eyes narrowed. "This man is Sergeant Caleb Marshall," she said, voice low and deliberate, "a tomb guard with the 3rd Infantry Regiment. He is one of the most disciplined soldiers in the United States Army. He has been entrusted with guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier. Do you understand what that means?" Emily swallowed hard. Her posture shifted. "I didn't know who he was," she said, voice quieter now. Bennett didn't flinch. "No, you didn't ask. You saw a man in a beat-up truck and decided he was a problem. Do you have any idea what it takes to earn this?" She gestured to the small silver badge now clutched in Caleb's hand. 9 months of training, flawless performance, absolute discipline, a level of respect you clearly don't yet comprehend. Michael stepped in, trying to diffuse. "Ma'am, we were just doing our job. We didn't mean any disrespect." Bennett's gaze shifted to him, softening slightly but remaining firm. "Your job is to protect and serve, not to harass a soldier who's done more for this country than most ever will." A hush fell over the street. The crowd, once entertained by the spectacle, now stood in reverent silence. The woman with the phone whispered, "That's a tomb guard." The older man beside her nodded, now with something close to regret in his voice. "Should have known. Guy's got that look." Caleb remained still, composed. The storm had passed, but he wasn't looking for vindication. "Captain," he said, voice low, "I don't want trouble. I just want to go home." Bennett nodded. "Understood, Sergeant, but this cannot be left unaddressed." She turned back to Emily, her tone hard again. "Officer Carter, you owe this man an apology." Emily stood still, pride and embarrassment warring in her chest. Her cheeks flushed. She removed her sunglasses, meeting Caleb's eyes for the first time, not with suspicion, but something close to respect. She took a breath. "Sergeant Marshall," she said, voice subdued but sincere, "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I didn't know who you were, and I shouldn't have assumed anything." Caleb gave a slow nod, expression unreadable at first, but then his shoulders softened slightly. "Apology accepted, officer. But next time, ask questions before you make judgments. You never know who you're dealing with." Michael, looking sheepish, rubbed the back of his neck. "Man, I've seen those videos of tomb guards. You guys are something else. I'm sorry too." Caleb nodded again. "No harm done, just doing your job." The words were true, but they carried the quiet weight of disappointment, of standards unmet. Inside Parker's grill, Linda Parker had watched it all unfold from the window. Now, she stepped outside, still wearing her apron, wiping her hands on a towel. She clapped her hands gently, breaking the silence. "All right, folks," she called, her voice warm and maternal. "Show's over. Come get some coffee. Let these people sort things out." The crowd began to move, the tension slowly dissipating into murmurs and motion. The soldiers didn't move until Caleb did. Bennett turned to him once more. "Sergeant, do you need an escort?" "No, Captain. I'm good," Caleb replied. "Thank you for coming." "We've always got your back, Sergeant," she said, and this time a rare warmth flickered in her eyes. Caleb walked to his truck, and the soldiers silently formed a corridor, boots stiff, faces proud. It wasn't for show. It was respect, earned and offered without ceremony. Caleb climbed in, started the engine, and drove off. The Dodge Ram rumbled away down the road, leaving the echo of boots and dust behind. An hour later, back at Parker's Grill, the story would continue. Around a booth, over black coffee, with truths shared and perspectives changed. The storm had broken, but for Caleb, the weight of duty never faded. And the next part of the conversation was just beginning. What does it mean to serve, truly? And what happens when civilians are invited to see behind the silence of service? Stick around. The answers are steeped in humility and served hot. The war outside had ended not with gunfire, but with silence. And it was in that silence that the real story began. Inside Parker's Grill, the air was warm with the scent of brewed coffee, grilled toast, and something else more fragile, reconciliation. The bright hum of fluorescent lights overhead cast a soft white glow on the chrome-trimmed booths and scuffed linoleum tiles that had seen decades of whispered conversations, but none like this. 3 mugs sat in the center of the corner booth, steam rising in lazy spirals, the ceramic warm beneath calloused fingers. It was the kind of table where locals solved life's problems over coffee. And now, it held 2 police officers and 1 man whose silence had just commanded the arrival of the United States military. Sergeant Caleb Marshall sat with his back straight, the same way he did on post, every movement precise, nothing sloppy, nothing wasted. Across from him, Officer Emily Carter rested both hands on her coffee cup, her posture looser now, the edge dulled from what had unfolded earlier on the street. Next to her, Officer Michael Hayes leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, his voice the first to break the awkward quiet. "Look, man," Michael said, eyes honest, "I just want to say again, I didn't know. I've never met someone who does what you do, not in person." Caleb nodded, not out of pride, but acknowledgement. "Most people haven't. We're not supposed to draw attention. That's part of the role." Linda Parker, the matronly figure behind the counter, filled another pot of coffee, eyeing the table with a familiar warmth. She didn't interrupt, but her presence grounded the moment. She'd served cops, soldiers, and strangers over the years. But this was something different. Emily broke the silence. "Can I ask you something?" she said, glancing at Caleb, the badge resting on the table between them. "What's it really like? Being a tomb guard, I mean. I looked at that badge earlier like it was just a trinket. I had no idea." Caleb's fingers lightly brushed the edge of the badge. His gaze drifted for a moment, not to anything in the room, but to a place farther away, heavier with memory. "It's not about me," he said. "It never is. Being a tomb guard means walking for the ones who can't, for the soldiers who never came home, for the names we'll never know. It's precision, yes, 9 months of training, 35 pages of memorized history. Every step we take is 21 inches long, 21 seconds between movements, 21 steps back, over and over. Every hour, every day. Rain, snow, doesn't matter, because they didn't get to go home." Michael's eyes widened slightly. "That's intense. I had no idea it was like that." Emily leaned back slowly, her expression tight with thought. "I joined the force because I wanted to help people. Serve, protect, but today I looked at you and saw a beat-up truck and thought, trouble." She hesitated, then added, "I didn't live up to the badge I wear." Caleb's voice remained calm, steady. "We all fall short sometimes. The point is recognizing it, listening, asking." Emily looked down at her coffee. I thought I was better than that. But the truth is I judged you, not because you did anything wrong, but because you didn't look the part." He nodded slowly. "It happens. But that's why we carry these." He tapped his badge. "Not for glory, for identity, for the ones we serve." Linda came over, refilling their mugs. "That's Caleb," she said with a soft smile. "Been stopping in here for years after his shifts. Never brags, Never complains. I didn't even know what he did until I saw that badge one day when he paid. Emily offered a faint smile, tinged with guilt. Well, he definitely had more patience than I did today. You were under pressure? Caleb replied. But so was I. You saw what you saw. Now you see more. Michael chimed in, Man, I wish more people talk like this. Every stop we make, we think we're protecting something. But sometimes we don't see who we're standing in front of. Caleb looked at him and said, That's why you listen. Every person has a story. Not all of them come with uniforms. Emily took a deep breath. I want to be better. I need to be better. That moment out there, I won't forget it. Caleb's eyes met hers. That's all any of us can do. Keep improving. Keep learning. Every step we take after the mistake, that's where honor lives. Michael nodded. Respect isn't about authority. It's about how you carry it. There was silence again, this time more comfortable, more real. A silence filled with understanding, not assumption. Caleb leaned back, the tension slowly draining from his frame. You asked what it's like to be a tomb guard, he said. It's standing for the voiceless and hoping the world pays attention before it's too late. Emily looked at the badge once more, no longer with curiosity, but with respect. Thank you, she said, and this time it wasn't just a formality, it was something earned. Linda stepped forward again, placing a plate of fresh pie on the table. Well, I figure if we're fixing bridges, we might as well have dessert too. They all chuckled, restrained, but the kind of laughter that meant something. Not forgiveness, not closure, but a beginning. As they sipped their coffee, as the windows of the diner fogged slightly from the evening air, something in that small corner of Willow Creek had shifted. No press release, no official reprimand, just a conversation, a few quiet truths, and the willingness to see beyond uniforms. Caleb looked out the window, toward the street where only moments ago he had stood alone. He didn't need recognition, he never had, but he did need one thing, a country, a community, a culture, willing to pause, ask, and listen. Emily reached out her hand. I promise to be that kind of officer. Caleb shook it. Then you've already taken your first step. The sun had set, but the diner glowed, and so did the hope that even one conversation over one table with 3 mugs of coffee could start to change how we see each other, not just as titles, but as human. But Caleb's journey isn't over yet, because soon Fort Myer will open its gates to the officers of Willow Creek, and in that sacred space, understanding will be tested once more. Stay tuned. The next chapter will reveal who's truly ready to serve and who's ready to listen. In the fading golden light of Arlington, where silence hangs heavy and sacred, Sergeant Caleb Marshall once again took his place. His boots touched the marble with reverence, each of his 21 steps exact, deliberate, unwavering. He turned with military precision, paused, and saluted. Not to be seen, not to be celebrated, but because some names were never spoken again, and yet their legacy must march on. Here, beneath the shadows of towering trees and eternal flame, no one asked questions about what kind of truck he drove or whether he was on duty. Here, honor wasn't something to be proven. It was embodied in every step, every moment of discipline, every breath taken in solemn duty. Because honor, Caleb knew, was never about the badge you wear. It was about how you carried yourself when no one was watching, how you responded when you were misunderstood, how you chose grace over anger, dignity over retaliation. It was in the quiet strength to forgive and the courage to speak gently, even when you had every right to shout. What began as a moment of judgment on a quiet street in Willow Creek had become something no one expected. A confrontation transformed into connection. A badge misread became a lesson remembered. And in the end, 2 officers walked away, not just with humility, but with purpose. The lesson is simple and yet profoundly urgent. Every person has a story. Every encounter holds the chance to listen. Misjudgment is easy. Respect takes effort, but it is the only road worth walking. Caleb never raised his voice, never demanded recognition, and yet, in that silence, he taught them more than any lecture or reprimand could have. Emily Carter, once quick to assume, left that booth with a vow to do better. Michael Hayes, once a silent observer, found his voice not in defense, but in reflection. And Linda Parker, who saw through uniforms long before others, remained the quiet thread of grace, tying them all together. This was not just a story of redemption. It was a call to return to American values that sometimes feel lost in the noise: duty, respect, dignity. These aren't words written on plaques. They're choices made in everyday moments, in how we stop someone, in how we speak, in how we choose to treat the stranger in front of us. But this is only the beginning, because what happens when that conversation leaves the diner? What happens when police departments and military units begin to train together, not in tactics, but in empathy? When officers step into the shoes of those who march for the nameless? When respect is no longer an assumption, but a skill? What happens when walls start to break? When towns like Willow Creek begin to shift? We're about to find out. If you believe in honoring service, in listening before judging, in building bridges over assumptions, subscribe, share, and stay tuned. The next chapter of Caleb's journey and the transformation of Willow Creek will be revealed soon. Don't miss what happens when two worlds collide, not in conflict, but in understanding. Next episode drops soon.